Introduction. As we all know, introduction is one of the most important parts of any academic writing. The aim of the introduction is to state the research problem, to establish your hypothesis and provide justification and state the method, results and conclusion. You must describe your research objectives clearly and simply. Explain and define your work and state why it is distinctive. You should also include a clear statement of your hypothesis, which states that you expect your requirements to reveal. If your work is not original, just give the current background information about the research problem. If it is original, for third-year students, for example, you will need to provide a comprehensive literature review of work preceding or closely related to it to show the gap in the existing knowledge. Briefly describe how you intend to answer the problem and give your result. Detail is not needed here. Leave that for the appropriate sections below. Write most of the introduction in the present tense, since you are describing a current problem and the current conclusion. Details of the methods and results given in the introduction should be in the past tense, and the future implications based on the conclusions should be in the future tense. So when talking about on the verb tense, you should know that introductions often create difficulties for students who struggle with keeping verb tenses straight. These 2 points should help you to navigate the introduction. The experiment is already finished. Just use the past tense when talking about the experiment. The objective of experiment was. The report or the theory and the permanent equipment still exist. Therefore, they get the past tense. For example, the purpose of this report is, and so on. Now, concerning the fourth component of an experimental report, which is materials and methods, it provides an extensive protocol for your experiment which can be repeated by others. This is essentially an instruction manual to enable reproduction of the work and should provide some points like details of the experiment design, details of the control used including their purpose, details of the data recording techniques, exact quantities and purities of reagents, technical specifications of the apparatus, specific methods of the sample preparation, accurate nomenclature, precise details of any subject sample included in the study, details of the sampling protocol. The fifth part of an experimental report is the experimental procedure. In this part, you will use clear paragraph in order to describe the process in which your report passed through in a chronological order. I'm going to give you an example. If your professor, for example, says you can simply state that you followed the procedure in the manual. Be sure you still document occasions when you did not follow that exactly. Examples: at step 4, we performed our repetitions instead of 3 and ignored the data from the second repetition. If you have done it right, another researcher should be able to duplicate your. Now, talking about the results. Results are usually dominated by calculations. There you show your result. Did you get the goal? Was your hypothesis true or false? Show the results step by step. Add tables, graphics if necessary. Try to compare your result with theoretical ones. It's also not part of marking conclusion. Here you show dry residue. Its purpose is to show your data and present it in a manner that is easy to read and to interpret. This is where the core of the work is presented, your experimental data. Clarity is essential since the rest of your report hinges on what you present here. The results section should be kept brief and repetition of methods or results should be avoided. Relationships between your data should be described in the next of your result sections. Talking about graphics and calculations, your graphics need to be clear, easily read, and well labeled. Okay, so there are some examples. As you can see, this is an example of the result of an experimental report in computing sciences, which refers to a scalable photonics computer solving the subset sum problems. As you can see, it's designed in a clear and easy read way. The results and the statistics are very clear, and this is how your work should be done. Second example, as you can see, its name is the design of experiments with full factorial design, LEFT, response surface with second degree polynomial. This kind of factorial design are also known as fully crossed designs. They refer to an experimental design that consists of two or more factors, as you can see in the design. In this case, each factor have multiple discrete possible value or levels. We use these designs with all the possible combinations of factor levels that can be investigated in each replication. The seventh component of an experimental research is the discussion. Its purpose is to discuss the relationships between your results and how they are related to your initial objectives and hypotheses. You should also describe the shortcomings and implications of your work. You should provide major conclusions supported with evidence and suggest future applications for your research findings. Do not recapitulate your result. You need to discuss how results are similar or different from published findings and attempt to explain the differences. If you cannot find a good explanation for your result, admit it. Just admit it. It's better to admit uncertainty rather than make up poor excuses. State your conclusions and build on them with evidence from theoretical findings in the same domain and the same subject. Just make sure you are clear with findings that belong to you and the ones that don't belong to you. Discuss the significance of your findings and any future implications. Write in the present tense in most of the time. When discussing your data, write in the past tense, and when discussing your future implications, write in the future tense. The eighth piece of the experimental report is conclusion. The conclusion is an integral part of the report. It is the section that reiterates the experiment's main findings and gives the reader an overview of the lab trial. To demonstrate that you have effectively learned the objectives of your assignment by writing a solid conclusion to your lab reports. The conclusion section should provide a take-home message summing up what has been learned from the experiment. In this case, you just briefly restate the purpose of experiment, the question that it was seeking to answer. You identify the main findings, answer the research question. Note the main limitations that are relevant to the interpretation of the result. Summarize what the experiment has contributed to your understanding of the problem. The ninth part is references. It's quite possible that you may have in-text citations in your lab reports. Typically, these will be included in your introduction to establish evidence of background for current theories or topics. Your discussion section also will often include in-text citations to show how your findings relate to those in the published domain, or to provide evidence-based suggestions or explanations for what you observed. When in-text citations are incorporated into your lab reports, you must always have the full citations included in a separate reference list. The reference list is a separate section that comes after your conclusion and before any appendices. You will check there your lab manual or unit information to determine which reference style is preferred. Carefully, you will follow that referencing style for your in-text references and reference list. You can find examples and information about common references styles in Google. Regarding the 10th step, which is appendices, its purpose is to preserve additional data that is too extensive to be included within the main body of the text. Appendices are not included in all scientific reports. However, they are frequently included in the back of thesis. For example, printout of the raw data or other supplementary materials may be included as appendices at the back of a thesis. Different types of material included in the appendices can be labeled as Appendix 1, Appendix 2, and so forth. Some electronic journals now offer scientists the opportunity to include extra materials that are too extensive for the main body of a journal article as an e-appendix. Each appendix must be given a number or a letter and a title, referred to by a number or a title at relevant point in the text. The last step of any